real. But there are some smart African countries that collected this loan and did their best to actually utilize it, use it for what they want, for his purpose. They are still in debt too, but they have something to show for it. Go to Tanzania, go to Eritrea, go to some of these go to some of these East African countries who have collected some of these loans in debt. You see them with modern train, modern days, lovely paved roads. You go to their local clinics, they are all tidy and all that. They are not rich, but you can tell what they use their money for. I'm not saying they are not corrupt. The people you have in Nigeria are horribly corrupt. So horrible. Now, that same guy is talking about the pandemic of Almajiri, out of school children, and then the End Bad Governance protest. He said the protesters were children. He's indicting himself here, so I want you to listen.
We used to know it when the religious leader epitomized in the throne or in the emirate. They are like the direction. But that, for some reason, is being whittled down by politics. And now there seems to be people getting on the street because they feel that they are not well represented by those who lead them. And it brings one thing, it makes the northern Nigeria more vulnerable. Because northern Nigeria is used to be a very well-coordinated, politically well-directed region of the country. But from what we saw in the past days, I think leaders in the northern Nigeria need to now sit up and know that there are people are now rising up and asking critical questions about transparency and how they lead them.
I will tell you, the next meeting that we should have as governors of the northern Nigeria, it is no longer a meeting where you will say, oh, religion has forbidden me from doing this. Oh, this today, God has gifted us, the governors, with this leadership. If we don't go out to say this has to be done right, during this last protest that we had in Lafia, majority of those that came out on the street were the Almajiris. Some of them 5 years old, 7 years old, 9 years old. A lot of them didn't even understand the meaning of the protest. When I spoke with them later, they didn't even know what they were protesting against. So we must sit down. At one point in the year 2020, we sat down as the governors and took the decision about the Almajiris. Unfortunately, it didn't work out well. They went back to square one. Some of the religious leaders criticized it, this and that. But from what happened now, I don't believe anybody will continue to criticize actions that will be taken in order to move forward. Otherwise, it will come, it's a time bomb, it will come and consume every one of us.
So what they say, something has come home to roost, isn't it? And it's an eye-opener that no leader can now take people for granted.
Correct.
The people are now more awoken. If there is one lesson that, apart from the fact what you have said, one lesson in terms of performance, that performance cannot only be deferred to the year of the election. It has to be now. In your own view, what do you think is now very much critical to your people that you need to start doing to persuade them, to make them know that you are really, really working in their interest? What would that be?
One is education. One of the biggest problems we have in the North, from the day I came, is idea of education, and the one we are still pushing on. When people actually don't have the education, don't have the economic empowerment, these people will continue to behave the way these Almajiris actually behave during this protest. So education must be taken seriously in the North. We must be honest with one another. We must face one another and say, sir, marrying so and so number of wives, having so and so number of children when you cannot even take care of yourself is wrong. No religion actually is promoting that. No religion is allowing that.
You don't think that's in the Holy Quran?
No.
That you can have more than one?
No, you can have more than one if you can afford. I'm a little bit learned in Islam. It's actually in the second is in another surah that we have. The first surah is Fatiha, the second surah is Baqarah, and the third surah actually that Imran, and then Nisa'i. So it is in the Surah al-Nisa'i where you are allowed, if you can afford, it also added, if you can. So it is not just because you are a Muslim.
So Quran forbids you responsibility. Marrying wives are not being able to cater for them. And allowing the children out of that wedlock to go on the street and start begging.
No.
with
Islam does not allow that. Islam does not agree with that.
So it's important for you to educate the people of the North.
It's important for our tradition. That's why I say our religious leaders should be part of our meeting. You see, the people are misusing the title of this Almajiri. I am an Almajiri. Almajiri is just a student. If I'm sitting with somebody, like Professor Pantami, I will call myself his Almajiri because I'm a student. I'm not as learned as he is. If I'm sitting together with Sheikh Jingir, I will say, sir, I'm your Almajiri. But there are some other people that will sit with me, they are my Almajiri. So Almajiri is just being misused as a title. Almajiri is somebody seeking for education, Islamic education. So it is not necessary, it's not a beggar.
So the Jonathan government Almajiri system that he created is actually a good idea.
Wonderful idea.
But it's collapsed now.
Long time ago.
So we need to go back to it.
No. You must not go back to that particular one. What I'm saying is that from the beginning, let us educate ourselves. Hey, China educated itself to say that you can have only this number of children. Okay? Yes, they are not Muslims. There are more Muslims in India than in any country in the world. But they are following some of these Islamic teachings. They don't follow some of these things that we are doing. In Saudi Arabia, if you go, majority of the people have only one wife.
So our people are misguided.
So we need the education.
Is that the case?
I don't want to use any wrong word, misguided, misinterpreted, this and that, but I'm saying we need to be educated by our religious leaders.
So the clerics need to rise up.
Yes, they need to rise up.
The emirs, the traditional rulers in the northern Nigeria needs to rise up.
Anybody, all, including our governors, including the people, everybody.
It's a time to declare a state of emergency in the northern region of the country, isn't it?
Well, I don't know if that's the right word to use, but I'm saying that we must wake up, as leaders and do what we think is right for this country and for our region. Our region is good in agriculture. Every one of us should go back to the field. And I'm saying if anybody is criticizing, we have started. For me, the background is there. When I was the group managing director in Dangote, I managed Savannah Sugar Company in Numan. I managed the Tunga Sugar Company. I was, in fact, the chairman of all the companies that are producing sugar in the country. So I'm very familiar with agriculture. I love agriculture. I have my personal farms. But today, for Nasarawa State, we have 5,000. We are going to do our first harvest. For rice. We have 5,000 hectares, that we have cultivated. Our first harvest is going to be end of October, early November. And so we are not just going to be talking, we have to show.
Right.
Some governors may be doing more than myself, because they have more land probably than I do. And those are the kinds of things. So we need to follow, we need to educate our people, we need to be serious about the Almajiri system, we need to do agriculture, we need to do all this. And the money is there. So I don't know, when you said people are not doing what are you going to do with the money if you are not working with it?
We used to know it when the
Did you see the ways? That's who they are. Okay. Good luck, Egbere Jonathan. Built over 1,500 Almajiri racing schools in northern Nigeria in order to stop the children from going on the streets begging, right? And these schools, the children were to be taught in Western education and then Islamic education, all combined. So which means there was nothing bad with it. So guess what? They accused Jonathan of trying to take their children away from Islam. But they were the one who brought the idea out that instead of you packing thousands of children, hundreds of children with all these Islamic clerics that are sodomizing them, raping them, sexually assaulting them, abusing them, and at the same time, using them for street begging. So if it is un-Islamic, how come these Oloribruku governors from northern Nigeria are so afraid of those Islamic clerics that education doesn't mean anything to them? They closed down all those schools. They stopped their children going to those schools when Bokwari became your president. Now the children were now, and they are now more on the streets. And the way is talking about agriculture. He said they had a meeting about this Alimajirism pandemic few years ago. They had a plan, but it never worked out. Could they work out? Because there was no real plan for them. If Alimajirism is fixed in northern Nigeria, it's just going to be a matter of time before these rogues are lynched in their own homes by these children. They will be more enlightened, educated to realize that the problem against them all their lives have always been these people who want them to be doing rank a day. Together. So that's exactly why, Alimajirism won't really finish. The hardship is now everywhere. This guy says he's participated in the protest so far. Now, they are taking a break, right? And he said that if Tinubu or Nigerian government fail to do something about this hardship, he is going to start his own terrorist group soon. I know you don't understand Hausa, not all of us, okay? But that's what he's saying here.
Assalamu alaikum jama'an Najeriya. Ni dan Kano ne, Haushi. Abin da yake mana cikin ƙasar nan, na yi imani da Allah. Ina nan sai na buwaye gwamnati. Yanda safin cikin bala'i, wallahi sai ta shiga bala'i. Ina ɗaya daga cikin mutumin da yake ƙoƙarin haɗa ƙungiya, zan kuma haɗa ƙungiya, zan ƙirƙire ta. Ba zan faɗa da duk wani talaka ba, amma na rantse da Allah da miyagun masu kuɗin mu da suka samu cikin matsala da 'yan siyasan mu, wallahi tun da kan kamsila ɗan majalisa abin da ta tafi sama da rantse da ubangiji da can, wallahi yanda ka san ana yanka rago alkuran sai mun fara yanka su. Wannan ƙungiyar kuma very soon ba da jimawa ba za ta fito, kuma za ku gani, za ku tabbata. Na rantse da Allah ba ɗan durin da muke shakka daga cikin 'yan majalisunmu da gwamnoninmu, wallahi in muka ce za mu yi sai mun yi, kuma muna nan muna shiri. Abin da zai faru a kansu wallahi ya fi abin da aka yi wa talakawa. Na rantse da Allah sai an ce ka je bi da ɗin ka ce ka haƙura ko takara sai mun zare maka sha'awarta da mulki a Najeriya, don wallahi Allah yanzu durin uwar gwamnatin Najeriya, durin uwar sojojin Najeriya. Ni nan na faɗi wannan, uban da ya fasa kama ni ya ci gutsun uwarsa. Ina waitin duk wani soja da yake takama shi ne ko wani shege, ga nan ni nake wannan maganar ya kama ni. Muna da ƙungiyar kuma ina ɗaya daga cikinta, muna nan muna haɗa da yardar ubangiji. Wallahi da mutanen da suke sayan abinci suke ɓoyewa cikin sito don a goga mana yunwa, ba abincin ne ba mu da shi ba, da shugabannin da suke zaluntar mu, wanda suka haɗa kai da 'yan ta'adda suke mana wannan barnar, a kashe mu, poverty, hungry, insecurity, kuma muna da shugabanni. To wayannan shugabannin wallahi na yi imani da Allah, mutukar abin da muke so har Allah ya ba mu ikon achievement ɗin shi, wa billahi lazi ba wani talaka mu, amma duk da kan wani mai kuɗi, in dai ya cika mai kuɗi ne mai ɓoye kayan abinci a house, da kuma gwamnatin da kuma 'yan barandanta wanda suke sa hannu ake cutar mu.
Practically saying it in the video that if they want to arrest him, they should arrest him. But if things doesn't change, he's from Kano State. He will put together his own group, and they will start their own terrorism for survival. And maybe you can ignore that one, okay? That maybe he won't do it. But the reason why you watched our video is just so you know that the economic corruption that has created the economic hardship in Nigeria by Tinubu and his illegitimate gang, we push a lot of people into further terrible crime because so many of them have gotten to a stage that now they value your life. Yeah, because you still have something. You have this comfy home. And you've got warm food, warm bed, right? So you don't want to die. Have you actually met Nigerians who are ready to die and they mean it? Have you ever met any one of them before? Oh, you are a comfortable person. I tell you, you may not be rich that the way others are rich, but you are a comfortable person. There are those who don't give a damn anymore. And it's not from today. Okay? You see those of them who are making themselves available to be recruited into terrorism and other criminal activities, right? They are not you. You are going to look at them and be like, how can you go and do? Why would you anybody go? Because you are comfortable, bro. You are. The situation that these guys have created, they've created monsters. It's just unfortunate that before the monsters actually consume them, we are going to be their primary victims. Dog eat dogs. All because you have a country where criminals could buy election, where criminals are above the law, where criminals are the ones ruling you, where lawbreakers are your lawmakers. A messed up country that two people were bold enough to say it to their faces. One is Sam Amadi, was in the gathering where they were discussing the backwardness of Nigeria caused by the ruling class, and he didn't hold back. I don't know if you've seen this. It should be interesting, right? Now watch this. Gandola was in the room.
First, let me commend my brother, the senior advocate, for a great paper. Noni saying was brilliant. There are so many brilliant people, but there are few sincere and honest people. So I respect and commend you for the truth. Brilliance is cheap, but honesty is expensive. Thank you very much. Let me say this very clear, and I'm going to respond to 3 key points. First, in every country, elections are one of strategy. So in the US today, you see policy people, strategists thinking around messaging, thinking around mapping constituencies. In Nigeria as well, election is one of strategy. And the strategy of election in Nigeria is very simple. Bribe INEC, bribe judiciary, commandeer the security, and they are done. The people that destroyed 23 election is INEC and judiciary. The rules were clear. The Electoral Act is not perfect, but it was very clear. I'm surprised that any judge who understands administrative law, which I have taught in the university for years, which I studied under the best in the world, would argue that an internal regulation built on a law, an act, a regulation, directing that you will do X, you can choose to do Y, when there is legitimate expectation and detrimental reliance. INEC was totally wrong, and the courts, Supreme Court downwards, got it wrong. When an agency created under the law with an enabling act and a constitution that says you can make rules, makes rules, those rules are law. They can unmake it through rule-making process. If they don't, they are bound to obey it. Results should have been transmitted electronically. I'm ashamed. I have a PhD in law and I can stand anywhere in the world to dispute the best and brightest. I was ashamed that the court affirmed that INEC can just walk away from the law. 5 years I was a regulator of electricity. When we make tariff, it's the same way INEC makes rules. We make those laws, tariffs. They are legal instruments. They are binding in law. I hold INEC responsible, and I hold the courts responsible for the failure of the elections. Sir, it's important to clarify who can sue. You raise the point. Electoral jurisprudence, the problem with Nigerian elections is that they don't understand electoral jurisprudence. Electoral jurisprudence is that the court's job is to restore back power to the people voting. Democracy is not, the dispute is not between Mr. Amade and Mr. Okutipupa. No. It's about the people's right to elect their leader. Therefore, we shouldn't be saying that only persons who contested and who could have won could file electoral petition. No. Citizens who voted have a right to go to court and say that the process was faulty. Look at the US jurisprudence. all the cases that went to court in 2020, I guess, were mostly by civil society groups and voters. That should change. Now, what does it take to nullify election? I always wonder why judges feel that what they call substantive justice, substantive compliance. If elections were conducted outside the rules, that is enough to nullify the election. You don't have to prove that you would have won. Elections should be nullified if they are conducted contrary to rules. Our jurisprudence is faulty on that. So the question then is, there's a key point somebody mentioned about too much burden on the judges. It is caused by INEC, and I make this clear. The new Electoral Act provides two safeties that we destroyed. First, internal democracy. It says that all candidates must be either elected directly or indirectly. If you choose indirect, then it laid out democratically elected. Let me say it clear. The court has a right and a duty to overrule parties if they present candidates that did not go through the rules of the constitution and their own internal rules. There's no justice like saying, look, there are three people here. Members of the party have a right to due process. That's what the Act provides for it, and that's what the Constitution provides for it. So if you do not second-guess politicians, then it's not that you're imposing the candidate, you are requiring them to follow the rules. And that's what the Supreme Court has been saying before. And the final point I want to make is very clear on this. INEC needs to start doing administrative adjudication. Now, let's be very clear. Every process in an election, including rulemaking, including declaring results, are administrative procedures that require due process. Meaning that INEC should be sitting and making rulings on objections during collection of elections. I watch the drama where INEC says, call result, you call result, after I go to court. No, that's not the way. There is an intermediate procedure before adjudication in court. That is administrative hearing. You must establish the validity of those results through a process that INEC can now make rules, which the court will now review through judicial review. So the critical point is here, and I want to end on this note. The Amechi case you mentioned, sir, interesting case. The court did something that was nice, but look at the failure. The issue is, it's not for the court to impose candidates. Courts can verify results and ask people to elect, to go back. So we have to redraft timelines to allow for repeat elections, not imposition. And the key point here then is that this is not a matter of nicety. I like the point you made. Politicians are mad dogs. You need to police them. But when the policer of mad dog is himself mad, then that's confusion. The judiciary should no longer be thinking of politicians as people who want to do public good. The public interest is to impose order and regularity in politics, not to allow politicians to self-regulate. That is a lesson of history. I don't blame politicians, I blame judiciary, I blame INEC, because they abandon their work, and politicians are the ones who can never see power and leave power. You have to treat them as persons who have adverse interest to public interest and force through regulation the convergence of private and public interest. Thank you very much.
Sam, thank you very much for that. Indeed, Nigerians will probably tell you, who are you talking to, right? Like, are you talking to the wall? Because you see, everything that is happening in Nigeria, including the state capture, is all intended. So that's why a lot of us don't really buy that idea of Nigerian judiciary or Nigerian this one or that one to do the right thing. It's gone. Do you understand what that means, right? You cannot preach to the choir at this point. The entire establishment, the entire institutions that were supposed to actually checkmate excesses of politicians, they are now being led by either politicians, their children, or their wives, even their concubines. are those manning institutions, reputable institutions. They were supposed to protect, that's why we said Nigeria is gone. Now, you cannot ask the criminals benefiting from these rots to fix it. They won't. That is where the revolution comes in. You have to, and it says something there. Politicians are those